Welcome to the Merick and Ulrik Midnight Review of the movie Apollo 10 and a Half and the debut album of the band The Warning, 21st Century Blood. My guest hosts today are Nate Glenn and Cleve Bourbon. Enjoy the show. Guys, welcome back. Due to the overmanding demand of the public, they were so excited about our last podcast, we just had to do another midnight review after getting so many responses online. It's just like nerve-wracking. I had to give the public what they needed, so we asked you guys to come back. So I really appreciate it. So we want to talk about Apollo 10 and a Half. It's a really cool movie that I didn't know existed. Nate Glenn recommended this movie, and it's not an anime, but it's an animated feature film, I guess you might say. But I feel like it uses live action stuff. So well, Nate, why don't you start us off, since you recommended it first? What caught your eye first, and why you wanted to recommend this movie to a review?
Right. So, my daughter Jasmine, she is an animator. She's 16 now, and she has done two animated shorts so far. She won second place in the state a couple of years ago, and then last year she won sixth place.
Wow.
And
In state.
in state. Uh, well, actually, I believe it was regionally this time, but the said that a couple of years ago she won second place in state. Um, so she's
That's awesome.
she's self-taught. I got her an iPad a few years ago, and I thought, yeah, maybe she'll do something good with this. I'll just give it a chance to see what happens. And man, she learned how to do digital art and animation on that thing, and it just blew me
Mhm.
away. So,
Wow.
cut to the chase. Uh, this summer, I sent her to the Austin School of Film. They had a week long animation camp, right? Austin School of Film, really, really great. So we stayed in Austin a couple of weeks ago for a week, and she went through the course. She learned how to use Adobe Animate. She learned how to use the uh, Wacom tablet, I think it's called, and she learned a lot of different animation. Now, she had a professor who was in charge of teaching the animation. He was an animator who worked on Apollo 10 and a half, and also another movie that I can't think of the name of right now, but he
Cool.
worked on that film. So that's how we heard about it. And one of the techniques that they learned in the class was rotoscoping. Now, rotoscoping is where you actually animate over an existing film, you know, and you can
Cool.
take liberties with it. You can do a lot of things with it, but basically you're just taking existing film and you're recreating it in an animated form, right? So that is
I had a feeling that was the case of the movie because it reminded me, not doesn't remind me of the style, but of that. Remember the Lord of the Rings animated movies, and they had film, but yet it was animated because
right.
you could tell it was live actors,
Yeah.
but they kind of blended animation. But it was totally a different style.
hmm
But this was
hmm
really cool too. Sorry for
Oh
interrupting you.
yeah, no problem. But yeah, that was basically what they were doing, and so it does interest me that there's film that was created for this too. I'm sure, and I kind of would like to see what that looks like too. I don't know about you guys, but uh,
Hmm.
it's a rotoscope, and it's to me it was very very interesting as far as nostalgic, uh, the nostalgic themes. It's reminds me of growing up in the early to mid '70s, actually, although it is based in the late '60s. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's very nostalgic. It's very accurate as far as what life was like back then, and it's also accurate in that we grew up with this age of space exploration, And
Yep.
a lot of us, I did, I don't know about you guys, but I dreamed of being an astronaut. I dreamed of flying to other planets, in a spaceship. And that's what, life was about back then. It was about, you know, this age of exploration. Uh, you know,
It's kind of like a optimism that they had that we were going to somehow get to the moon
right,
and then we're just going to keep going.
right,
But that did never happen. We
yeah,
just
yeah,
got there and then some rocks and let's go.
The
right, right.
cost, it's money.
It's money,
Yeah.
money, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we probably
So,
would have.
right, right. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into that movie, and I saw it, and I was, really fascinated by the historical aspects of it, and also the local aspects, because this is a
Mm-hmm.
Houston movie, and it's, some of the Houston that I remember because I lived in Bay City.
Yes.
I lived in Bay City in the early '70s. Okay.
Who did I saw that Jack Black has a credit to this film. Who did he play
He
on
was
that
the
movie?
narrator.
Oh, he was the narrator. Yeah, I forgot that.
He,
Yeah,
he just wasn't
totally.
being crazy. He was just doing a normal voice.
Yeah, yeah.
Ah, boy, that just went right over my head. I didn't realize
Do you
that.
know what his
Um,
connection is to the moon landing, by the way? Jack Black.
did
He
his
is
mother or father have something to do with that? NASA or something?
His mother was the woman who wrote the code that controlled the moon lander.
Wow.
Wow.
The computer code, his mother wrote it, and I remember a picture of her with a stack of computer printouts like that tall, right? And she was
Yeah.
going through the code while she was in the hospital to give birth to Jack Black.
Yep, that's awesome. So you know what I want to say? I will come back to you, Nate. I want to thank you for recommending this movie. It was something different, and it was way different than I thought it was going to be. I don't know what I thought it was going to be. It reminded me a little bit of the Wonder Years because it was very nostalgic of how life was back in the day, and it really. I used to love Astro World and the Astrodome. It's so weird because this movie has a lot of stuff about Houston that's just really and how I didn't grow up in the late 60s or even the early 70s. I grew up in the mid 80s, but I can still remember riding in a pickup truck with a bunch of my cousins driving down the road to the beach or something like
Mm-hmm.
that without a care in the world. And now, you can't put a kid in a car who's without a car seat till they're like 8. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. I remember one part of that movie. Okay, there's two things I wanted to mention. There is one of the songs on the soundtrack to that movie is a song that was on an album by Leonard Nimoy. Okay, I don't know if you heard this or not before, but it's Mr. Spock's Music from Outer Space, and
Oh,
it's a
wow.
song
Well,
called
who sings that song? Go ahead.
it's a
Good.
song called
I don't know.
Music to Watch Space Girls by, and it was like da 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 da
I'm going to
da
have to listen
da
to
da
that
da.
tonight. I remember that melody, but I didn't know where that
It's
came
one
from.
of the best, most craziest albums I ever heard in my life. Okay,
Yeah.
it's sort of like when uh, the guy that played Captain Kirk, who I'm talking about, he made an album and it was just famously terrible. Okay,
Yeah.
Leonard Nimoy did too, and his album,
William Shatner,
yeah,
yeah.
William Shatner, he made one that was terrible. This one, it's also pretty terrible, probably, but to me, it was extremely entertaining.
Well, we're going to have to do a review when it gets to be 2025 because in that year 2025,
That was
will
there too.
humans still
Yeah,
be
yeah,
alive?
yeah.
That was on the song. I like that one too. That's great. I would say this movie was a good movie. I say it's a good movie. I don't know if overblow it, but it was a really good movie. And from my perspective, it was very entertaining. And I don't know if I want to do any spoilers, but yeah, it's from a child's imagination. I think the whole premise of the movie Apollo 10 and a half, which is gave it, if it didn't have that weird beginning of the movie where they made a too small lunar module and
Right.
it's going that if that wasn't the case, then it really wouldn't have it to tie it together to the strangeness of it. And the kid obviously had just a crazy imagination. It was really funny
I mean,
too.
but that's the way we
Um,
kind of lived back then. We thought of
yeah,
ourselves as future astronauts, and in our fantasies,
yeah,
when we saw,
yeah,
them going
we
into
were,
space, it was us too. That was our dream that
yeah.
we were actually exploring.
Well, I was born in 1968, and so I was late Gen X. So I think the movie appeals a lot to probably baby boomers, but it also appeals to, like you said, young Gen or older Gen X. Because I
Yeah.
remember all this time. I remember making the homemade popsicles and the Tupperware popsicle holders, with Kool-Aid,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I remember all that. And I have relatives in Houston, so I've been to Astro World. I've been to Johnson Space Center. Um,
Yep. And they don't have Astroworld anymore. Astroworld closed a long time
yeah.
ago. It's just really sad. But I think it's funny the
And the
optimism that
Astrodome.
people had at that time. And there was the Astro. It seemed so futuristic and modern at the time, I guess, but it all aged poorly. You know what I'm saying?
To me, when I see that architecture, it's just amazing. It's just like, oh man, I'm
Yeah.
in love. The old gas stations, the Astrodome, the Astro World. So, oh man, I just can't
Yeah.
contain my affection for that stuff. And it does. It probably looks ugly by today's standards, but I just remember that stuff.
My girlfriend loved it. She thought we watched it several times, and she enjoyed watching it several times. So it really holds up. I think it's a great movie. It's funny, and I guess what they say, they're not making any good movies anymore. This was a quirky, different kind of movie, um, and I give it 4 stars. What do you want to say, Cleve, about it?
I was just going to say that I saw a lot of. I went into the search on what people thought about the movie, just because I was curious, and there was a lot of millennials and Gen Z that were asking, "Is it real? Is that a real story?" So I just want to say to the Gen X, to the Gen Z and the millennials, no, they did not send a kid up in space
No,
by
they did
himself to
not.
the moon. That did not
Yeah,
But
happen.
yeah,
they sent monkeys though, so you can't really
Yeah,
blame them
monkeys.
for having that question in their head. Like, they sent a
Right,
monkey. The Soviets sent a dog.
right.
So
well, the astronauts, NASA is are if when you get down to these people who do space or do like you know traveling into orbit and stuff like that, these are like scientists who are like mathematical nuts. They're just mathematical about math. So the idea that they would actually build a too small of a lunar module, but it's that kid's mind. I remember being a kid and daydreaming about stuff, and I could see a kid
Hmm.
inventing a whole story in his head as a child and just fantasizing about that. It makes sense. Even when his dad says to him, he fell asleep during he's like his mind will replay it like he saw it when he sees it as when he grows up.
and
He
to
was
me,
It's
he
kind of
talking
was
true.
more. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that he was talking about being in front of the TV and talking about the Vietnam War and everything that was happening from 60 to 69 apparently. But this Vietnam War went on to 75. So I also remember in the early 70s being in front of the TV and hearing it because I remember specifically because they were talking about the guerrillas and guerrilla warfare. And I
Mhm.
was thinking they were being mean to gorillas, like the monkey, the ape.
Right, they're shooting animals.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I was like, "Why are they
you
being
know,
mean to those gorillas, Dad?" And he's like, "Not that kind of gorilla."
yeah, yeah. I thought.
and when he said, "Oh, there's assassinations and there's war going on," but we just thought that the way life was. We didn't really pay much attention to it. And as a kid too, I was thinking about it like, we grew up with the Iraq War and Afghanistan, but it was way far away, and we just thought, "Oh, that's just what happens, the wars and stuff."
I
And
mean, it's
as a
difficult
kid,
to actually process the fact that when he's talking about all this stuff, that was when the hippie movement was going on in San Francisco around 68, 69. That was the high point of the
yeah,
counterculture with all of
right,
the LSD and it was totally different world.
Oh yeah.
yeah,
And the word, I just want to say this because, being an English guy, the word uh, alge in Greek is pain. So nostalgia is a type of pain. Did you know that? So when you think back at it, it's like a longing, like a pain for longing for
A
having
pain for
gone
the
by.
past.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, right.
So
yeah,
that kind of puts it in perspective because it was very nostalgic. I mean, he went on and on and on about things. I was like, oh, wait, we did that. Hey, we did that. Hey, we did that. Because I had two older
yeah.
sisters and a younger brother. So a lot of the stuff that he was talking about with his sisters and stuff, my sisters did. And with the Ouija board, when they were doing the Ouija stuff, they were talking, does so and so love me? My sisters did that exact
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And even like with his grandparents, the guy's like, you can reuse this nail. It's a perfectly good nail. Just do like this. And it's like, these guys don't waste anything. It does remind me of my grandparents and stuff like
Hmm.
that.
I can tell you
And
that
so
we did
even,
that when I was a kid constantly. We would like be building things and tearing things down. and we would get the nails out of the boards, right? And then we would do that very same thing, put them on a table and just, straighten them out, put them in a little glass bottle and reuse them. That's
Mm-hmm.
what we did, And another thing that really was like really weird that came into my mind while I was watching that, the guy is, he gets caught doing something bad. He goes they make him go to the wall, and he hunkers down just a little bit so that when he draws
Yeah.
the circle, he doesn't have to stand on his tiptoes, right? And it just reminded me of when I was a kid and you would be saddling a horse, right? And you know what the horses do? They puff themselves up just a little bit because you have to have it, really tight. The saddle has to be really tight or you will slip off, it'll slip to the side and you'll fall off. So they don't like that. They don't want it to be that tight. So they puff up a little bit. You can't even tell. And then you have to sit there and watch them for a minute and then they'll exhale and you can tighten it again. That's the exact same scenario,
We had the circle, but
That's
it was on the
great.
chalkboard. It wasn't on the wall. They put it on the chalkboard for our punishment when I was really small. When I was small, we also got paddled like they portrayed in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to Christian school, so I did get that punishment too. Yeah. But the movie was great. I think it was a refreshing, and it wasn't on my radar until Nate brought it up. So I really enjoyed it. It was refreshing. It was something just kind of innocent and good, good feelings and stuff, and kind of nostalgic, especially since we live in Houston. And for me, I loved Astroworld. So that just I guess I was the last generation to get to go to Astroworld, and then whatever. I guess the real estate in Houston got more valuable than the money they were making off the rides, and so that's what they did. I think they
Yeah.
chopped it up and parceled out the real estate.
And plus, I mean, after a certain amount of time, things start breaking down, they get older.
And the cost of upkeep.
It's what happened to Astrodome. It just got old, started getting kind of run down, and
Yeah.
and they just didn't want to keep it going anymore, I guess.
Yep. Yep. And the AstroTurf and all that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a good movie, really good movie, and I give it 4 stars. It was a good. It wasn't obviously. I guess it didn't. It was more on just a Netflix movie, but I don't want to put it down as it being like subpar. It was a good movie.
Did you
I
guys
wouldn't give
go
it
to
more than 4 stars.
Did y'all go to the Astrodome when you were a kid?
I went to the Astrodome when I was. I went to one baseball game in the Astrodome when I was a kid, and I went to the last rodeo in the Astrodome, and I saw Bob Dylan there, and I thought it was a shame and a crime that I was in the nosebleeds and I should have been down on the floor.
I
I
only got
remember
to
going there.
far. I didn't
Go
get
ahead,
to go
Cliff.
inside. I just saw it when I drove by. We drove by it once,
Oh, okay, yeah.
but I never got to go inside of it.
Is it still there, or did they tear it down finally?
I think it's still there, but it's just kind of a shell. But they might
Yeah,
have torn it
there's
down. I can't remember, but I do remember
yeah. It
going
was
there.
there a few years ago.
Yeah, it was there a few years ago. But I remember going as a small child, and I just remember, I couldn't believe how big it was. It was just it was totally outside of my expectations as a 5-year-old.
All right. Well, I recommend people see this movie. I think it's a good movie. Is there anything else we want to point out about the movie? It's on Netflix, and it was a 2022 release, I believe. And it's just a good feel-good movie. I think it's just a good family-friendly movie.
Spoiler alert,
Yeah, it
they
was
did go
entertaining.
to the moon.
They did make it in 1969 to the
And it's
moon.
not
Supposedly, there's a lot of conspiracy theories.
I
Yeah,
probably would also give it 4 stars. At the very end, I was feeling like it was dragging a little bit. I was kind of ready for it to end, but
yeah. They had that plot element at the beginning, and they took a long time to get back to the whole 10 and a half space travel and stuff. So I felt like that they had a lot of entertaining filler, but it was a lot of entertaining filler as far as the plot goes.
And I will
I'm
say,
sorry.
you're right, Cleve, about nostalgia. It is kind of a yearning for the past, and it papers over the reality of the past. The past was not all fun and games. There were a lot of things
Right.
about the 60s, 70s, 80s that we would not want to go back to. Let's be clear about that.
like
It
all the
was not.
smoking. I mean,
Yeah, all the
everybody
smoking.
smoked back then.
Yeah.
Everyone.
It,
This brings up another thing,
Right.
okay? And you guys can disagree with me, and I'm pretty fine with that. But how I just asked the question, like how much do we give up to be safer. We give up a lot of freedom, or because what I'm saying, like, obviously it's not safe for a bunch of kids to be in the back of a pickup truck driving down 90 miles down the highway. Of course, we get that. There's some obvious safety concerns. But I remember just back to the early 90s, people used to smoke in restaurants. Obviously, it was not comfortable for a lot of people who are non-smokers. But when you look back at these old movies in the 50s and the 60s and people are just smoking away,
Mm-hmm.
even like in the bands smoking in the studio while they're mixing the tapes and stuff, you just wonder, it's like you kind of want to go back there to a land where people are so carefree that they weren't so freaked out about cancer, or they weren't so terrorized by, being ejected out of the back of a truck or something. I mean,
Not
I guess
me,
it's,
not me. Not as far as cigarettes, because that was a dirty habit, and
yeah,
people
it's a
did
dirty
it
habit. I like to,
everywhere.
Yeah,
oh yeah, yeah.
everywhere.
It was addicted to. I guess, but I just, something about it is kind of nostalgic to me. That it's like, of just freedom, of just, I don't know, just maybe it's what do you call it? You know, stupidity is happiness or something like that, where you
Hmm.
just,
Hmm.
what I mean? It's just,
Ignorance is bliss.
just
Yeah,
yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, it just seems like something about that is just like, I don't know, just it seems appealing to
yeah,
me. I don't know
yeah. It
why.
does to me too. Yeah, yeah. I think that
Well, yeah,
just the not worrying about safety so much. As long as you don't get hurt, it's great.
Right,
yeah. When we
right.
were in the
That's
back of those
absolutely.
pickup trucks, we lived near a lake where I grew up, and we went to the lake in the back of the truck all the time. And not once did I think back then that, hey, we're just one, fender bender away from getting ejected out of the back of this thing. I didn't think that at all.
Yeah.
It didn't cross
Yeah,
my mind.
and the dad drinking a beer as he's driving in the truck with the kids, no big deal. And obviously, we know how bad drunk driving is. I mean, there are some really serious, horrible things that happen and stuff. But and people weren't so uptight about it back then. But as we know, you know, I don't want to go there. It's a moral issue, obviously, but it's you got to think about other people's safety, not just your own safety. But God, it's just a lot of, it is weird looking back at the past, the wild wild west, you might say, was probably the same way. People shooting guns, running around and stuff, but obviously,
Well, we rode around
it's
without seatbelts and everything. As a matter of fact, my dad was really mad when they made the law to have your seatbelt on. He said, it doesn't hurt
yeah,
anybody but me. If I don't wear my seatbelt and I wreck, it's my fault. That's what
yeah. I
he's.
guess
Right.
I guess the social thing to that was it probably raises other people's insurances or something. I don't know. I guess the aggregator people will probably say that.
You don't want to
But
fly
yeah, I
out of the
agree.
car and hit somebody and kill them.
Yeah, with your dead body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, I guess insurance companies don't want to pay. What I'm saying is they didn't want to pay extra mortality claims for your life
Yeah, they don't want
insurance.
to
I
pay
guess
for
I don't
your
know.
medical bills, basically. I guess what it
Yeah,
is. But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
can you
I
believe
think
that
maybe that might have.
Richard Nixon was the one that did all of that environmental legislation? I mean, they reminded. I already knew that, but they
Yeah,
reminded you in the movie.
yeah,
Richard Nixon made the
yeah.
Clean Air, Clean Water Act.
And don't get me started on Richard Nixon, because I have a whole bunch of conspiracy theories about Richard Nixon too. Because okay, I'm just gonna say this one, but look, the only non-elected president we have ever had to our country who is never elected to being a dog catcher ever was Gerald Ford. He wasn't vice president at first. The Nixon's Nixon's vice president was Agnew, and I think
Right.
he got kicked out because he cheated on his wife or some kind of thing. And they're like, even the Republicans was like, this is immoral. Send this punk out of here. And so they got rid of him, and then they put in Gerald Ford, who I understand. I could be completely wrong. Somebody fact check me on this, but he worked for the FBI and the CIA, and so they put him in, and then shortly after that, Watergate happened. Nixon was out. I'm a big conspiracy guy. I think things, deep state stuff happens. But hey, whatever. Don't listen to me. I don't know.
The Ford
So I
was
think he was
wasn't he a football player? Wasn't he somebody who
I
used to
don't
play
know.
football? I think he was. I can't remember, but I know he was super clumsy.
Was it Gerald Ford? Is that his name? Was his
Yeah.
president?
Yeah, he was
Yeah,
Gerald Ford.
but that's
He was an
yeah, that's
athlete,
my
I
that's
believe, in high school or college,
yeah.
and he was
He probably
clumsy. He fell down the stairs of
mhm.
Air Force One or something like that, and they made fun of him just relentlessly about that. And it's kind of funny
Yeah.
how that was the scandal. It was he just tripped.
All right, so we're getting a little off track from the movie, but I think it's a good movie. Go and see it. And we're going to talk to the next half of this podcast. We're going to talk real quick about this band that I never heard of. I never heard of. That's not good English. Somehow that's messed up. I hadn't heard about until Cleve mentioned them to me. So we're going to pause briefly for a commercial break so I can grab me another beer out of the fridge, and I'll be right back. Beard, and we're back. And so Cleve showed me this band, and it's kind of a unique band because they're all sisters and they're from Mexico. And so I'm probably like the last person in the world to hear about this band because it just was not on my radar. The band's called The Warning. So Nate Glenn is a drummer in a band called Loose Helmet. Have you heard of The Warning before? Maybe you were already listening to them. I didn't
I
know.
have heard of them. I hadn't listened to them before, but yes, I've heard of them. It's a
Mm-hmm.
trio, I believe. Three
Mm-hmm.
girls, 12, 15, and 17.
They were at the time, I think, on that first
In
album, I think, but they're in
2017,
their
yeah.
yeah, they're in their 20s. So I think they're in their early 20s now. But yeah, so this album I for us to review is called 21st Century Blood, I believe is how you say
Right?
it. And so I've been listening to that all week and kind of the last couple of days and stuff. And I guess I chose their first album to review because I did listen to their last album, but I just thought it was kind of cool to listen to their first album, maybe talk about it.
Hmm.
So maybe we're the last people in the universe reviewing this release from 2017, I believe.
17,
2017,
18.
yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, Cleve, tell me about how you found out about this band, and then we can all kind of give our own little review of this album. Is that okay?
Yeah. I came across them. I I would think I was watching YouTube Shorts or something, and I came across them one time, just out of the blue. Like the algorithm showed them to me, and I fell down the rabbit hole hard. And this was like October of 2 years ago, and I for like a solid year I did nothing but listen to the warnings because I was just so
Yeah.
amazed that these three sisters, and at the time, like with 21st Century Blood, they were only like around 11, 12 was Ali, the bass player. Powell, the
Mm-hmm.
drummer, she was around 14, and then Danny was 16. And I was like, how? They had to have help. Someone has to be helping them write these songs and everything. But from what
Yeah.
everything I've seen, they did it themselves. They wrote the songs themselves. They did have teachers that taught them how to play their instruments
Hmm.
once they were interested in it. They started playing rock band first of all. And then they decided, hey, we really like rock band. We like this. We want to do this. And so they did it for real. And their dad, I think, was some sort of promoter, like a music promoter, and he was like, he started seeing, hey, they're, little pal's got rhythm, and he started, they really, backed up. I think their mom was a dentist,
Hmm.
and so
Wow.
they started supporting them, and they went viral with this. I think this might have been what I saw on YouTube.
Inner
They went
Sandman.
viral with Inner Sandman, and I was like, wow, and I think that's what I saw first, and I was like, wow, these little kids, and then I realized they weren't little anymore, and then I started. I guess it was the Error album because Keep Me Fed, which is the last album, wasn't out yet. So
Mm-hmm.
the Error album had just come out, I think in 22, like summer of 22, and so I was just after that. So I started listening to the three albums. They have a concept album called Queen of the Murder Scene, which is phenomenal. But anyway, I started listening to those three albums like on constant rotation. And then, of course, I started, like a lot of people, I started waiting for every new song to pop out and jump on it. And,
Mm-hmm.
everybody just does tons of reviews when a new song comes out from them. And it's just, they were kind of like a hidden secret, like a hidden gem for a long time. And they finally got signed to Lava Records
Mm-hmm.
with Error, and they just started taking off from there. And so they've kind of gone in a kind of sort of weird direction. Not bad. Their latest album, to me anyway, I don't think it has a skippable song on it. Every song, I can play that album completely from front to back. The songs are a little short, but I can play it front to back without any problem. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think they really have very many skippable songs at all in all the albums, to be honest.
Hmm.
They're just phenomenal. I don't know how so much talent can be packed in three sisters from Mexico. It just amazes me. I'm still flabbergasted by it. Every time I pick up my bass guitar, I'm thinking, what the heck? How are they doing that?
Well, I did hear one podcast they were talking about how they were given piano lessons were from early age, like we're talking like 3 and 4 and 5,
Oh yeah.
if I'm not mistaken. So I really think that their family was very musical, and I'm not saying like, oh, that's why they're so great. I mean, you could have piano lessons since 3. It doesn't make you a great band. It doesn't make you a good musician, but I just think it does help.
Hmm. hmm
And yeah, so I thought that was really cool. And yeah, listening to them, they really have the fundamentals uh, just down packed. They're very professional. I mean, it's just listening to their first album. The one thing I will say about their first album is it seems like they're trying a lot of different styles on that one album. But man, they're just very polished, and they're young. You can tell they're very young, but they have some great taste. I didn't mean to interrupt you too much there, Cleve. I was
No, it's fine.
just on the piano lesson thing. I was gonna see if maybe I could screen share like 10 seconds of one of their songs. I'm just trying to figure out how to do that.
Okay.
If I could do that, maybe we could. I mean, if I don't play too much, I think we might be able to get away. But keep talking, and maybe if I figure
Okay.
it out,
All
I'll
right.
just put it in there.
Well, on the album, on the first album, there's a song called "When I'm Alone," and the girls famously call it. I forget in Spanish. It's like "huele melon." It's like "eat a melon" or something. So that's what they call it. Um, that's what they call
Eat
it
a
for
melon.
fun. But anyway, Danny wrote that because they went on the Ellen show and they got um, kind of, I don't know if it was a scholarship, but they got money. Somehow they were able to go to a music school, and she wrote that
Mm-hmm.
while she was alone in music school, and so that's one of their mainstays. They play quite a bit on stage. That's on that album. The other song I
Mm-hmm.
like on that album, I like 21st Century Blood, the song itself,
Yeah,
especially the
that
guitar
first song.
parts. And it just amazed me that she's singing all that and playing that at the same time.
Yes.
Because the
I
drummer
mean,
is the
all
lead,
the whole
Well, yeah.
normal thing.
is she? I didn't
Well,
notice
the
that.
Okay.
I
guitarist is
didn't know
the
if it
lead
was the
singer, and the drummer is also a lead singer. They
yeah. Because when I heard when I saw the live video, I thought the guitar player was singing.
yeah.
But I guess they all sing, do they?
Well, the guitar player, Danny, she's the lead singer, and then Powell, the drummer, is the secondary lead singer. Like the majority of the songs are sung by Danny, and then the other songs are sung
Mm-hmm.
by Powell. And then Allie refuses to sing. She doesn't like sing. She does it occasionally when Danny's sick,
Hmm.
from what I understand,
Uh,
but she doesn't like it. So you just get her backup singing most of the time. You have to understand. I've been on this rabbit hole for a long time. you
well,
know,
it's good to hear an expert. So we have an expert on the panel talking about it. But yeah, it's a good band, and I was telling my girlfriend too that a lot of people don't realize that they're from Monterey, but I met a band from Mexico City, and you might expect them to be more ethnic or something like that in their music, but I met a band called Sour Soul
Mhm.
in Houston about I want to say it was back in I don't know 2000 well, if I can remember, 2010, and the band's called Sour Soul, but they're from Mexico City, and they sounded like some kind of version of the Beatles or something, like a modern version. A very, you would have thought they were British before you would have thought they're from Mexico City. So it's Mexico in the urban areas seems to be very diverse as far as like their musical styles and even modernists. People, I just assume that Mexico's just a bunch of villages and stuff, but they're really not.
Mhm.
There
Well,
was one of our coworkers a while back. She was working out of Mexico City, and she came to the office, and she was, meeting us all, and she seemed very, uh, I don't know, American to me. She seemed very like not different than what you would expect in American City. Uh, and her one thing that she was really enjoying about America was the sandwiches. She said they don't have sandwiches like that in Mexico City, but other than that, she was just like anybody else she would meet on the street.
wow, that's cool. I've never been to Mexico. I've been to Canada, but I've never been to Mexico. And from what I understand, they did catch some flack for singing all their songs in the first album and the second album were all in English, and they caught some flack for that from their countrymen, and so they wrote the song "Narcisista" to
Ah,
counteract. That's uh, kind of a middle finger to them, like we'll sing what we want to sing. But they do
right.
have three Spanish songs now. But at the time when Narcissista came, well, Narcissista is one of the three songs, but
Hmm.
when it came out, that was why Powell wrote it. It was you think we're narcissists or whatever. So it was kind of a thumb their nose at
Okay,
those critics.
I'm sorry. I'm here,
Is
but I think
Sam
experimenting a
still
little bit,
here?
guys. I'm
Oh, there you
sorry. I
go.
probably made some major mistakes here because I'm trying to figure out how to screen share. So I try to do two computers, but it's weird because it knows it's me, so it's not letting me. I can only be on one at a time. Uh, anyways, but I'm back. I hope you didn't hear any
Weird.
echoes while I switched over because because
No.
No, no.
I might be able to do some here. Might be able to do some screen sharing real quickly. If you've heard some mess up sounds, forgive me. Trying to navigate this, so maybe we can play like 15 seconds of one of their songs. We really should play one from the 21st Century Blood because that's what we're talking about. I can play the title track of that, just like 15
Right.
seconds, so we don't get a copyright strike.
Yeah, the beginning of that song is pretty, strong, and it kind of
Yeah, we'll see
sets the tone for the
in a
song. So
second.
I
I think
think
I
you
should
can
be able
just
to
play the
do it.
beginning.
So I have a whole bunch of screens open. Sorry, and I might have I've jumped in back and forth, but hope that didn't disrupt too much. I like the band. I just think besides even their style, like I might say their style may not be completely my style, but I haven't listened to all their songs. But they're so talented, it just makes you. I mean, I don't want to blow them up as put them on a pedestal, but especially like Cleve said, for early teenagers putting out really solid rock music, it's very very impressive. And like I said earlier on the podcast, it's a big kick in the nuts. He's been playing for a few years and you're like, God, I need to get after it. These guys are really talented. These girls, these musicians and singers, songwriters are just really talented and they're doing a great job. And from a young age, that's what I say. It's like like you said, they must have had some help.
You know what really impressed me was
Mm-hmm.
the ending to Unmendable. Unmendable was, it was
Mm-hmm.
okay at the very beginning. I was kind of, like, okay, this is cool. But then when they got to the ending, that was when I really just like,
Yeah.
okay, respect.
There's a lot of people who talk about when they release new music that the latest song they release is your favorite song. That's my
Yeah.
favorite song. They release another one. Well, that's my favorite song. It's because every song they come out with just
Yeah.
seems to
So
get better.
in that
They
sense, and I want you to finish
in
that
that
thought, hold that thought. In a sense, we're kind of like deconstructing their first album, which may be their weakest album. I don't know because I haven't listened to all of them, but they're still pretty strong. Go ahead, Cleve. I'm sorry for interrupting.
I was just gonna say that in the that album, uh, 21st Century
Mm-hmm.
Blood, there's a song in there pretty much for everyone. Now, there's one in
Mm-hmm.
there. I think it's Black Holes,
Mm-hmm.
which talks about addiction, and people I've often heard people say that it was so accurate that they thought that maybe
Yeah.
she
Yeah. Come
had been
on.
addicted. It's like she was 14. I doubt maybe unless she's Drew. What's her face, Drew Barrymore. I don't. Maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
But she hit the nail on the head. And one song, if you've ever been through a
Mm-hmm.
divorce, then Our Mistakes from that album,
Uh,
it hits pretty hard.
Yeah, there's themes of love in there, like the breakup kind of songs. There's
mm-hmm.
political songs, like 21st Century Blood.
Yeah.
Unmendable, I could not tell whether that was a political song or a breakup song because it was talking about, you've done something bad and you're betraying. It was about betrayal, but it was not about one person. It was about us. You betrayed us, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I was kind of, and that's one, I do have a few criticisms of it. And that was one of them is that some of the songs lyrically, I couldn't quite get a handle on as far as, what exactly are they saying here? Or is there a clear message there that lyrically, and sometimes there was, but then
Yeah.
in other parts, I was a little bit unsure, like Unmendable. Uh, I would have liked for the vocals to be a little more present, thicker, more backup vocals, more out front, uh, you
Mm-hmm.
know, more explosive. Uh, but in general, it was very competently done. It was the instrumentation was really good, really professional, and like I said, there were parts of it that really blew me away. Like the ending to Unmendable, the drums were just fantastic, and really just kind of went back and forth with the guitar and just like,
Mm-hmm.
man, it was like an explosion.
If you really want to hear Powell doing some really amazing things on the drum, what you need to do is listen to on the Air album. You need to listen to a Disciple. That blows me away. The drumming part on that just blows me away. It's like, how'd she do that? It's incredible. But um, this album too, I was just trying to remember. There was a song on there. Oh, it was a Shattered Heart. When you're talking about, I'm referring to what Nate was talking about when he's talking about sometimes the lyrics didn't quite hit. There's one, and I thought of this before. I'd seen Allie, the bass player, talk about this, but she said she didn't understand what "I don't know how to be heartbroken" meant, and so she didn't like that song apparently. And then later on, when she got older, she was like, "I said that," and she didn't remember. But the point is, that's something I had trouble with too with that song. It's like, I don't
Well,
know how
my
to be
thing,
heart.
my
I
thing
was
is,
thinking everybody knows how to
these
be
are
heart.
writers who are like early
It has to go
teens,
out.
so their life experience. What my
Yeah,
thing is,
exactly.
Right,
their
right.
musical
Give
talent
them a
may
pass.
surpass their life experience at this point, which is really kind of cool to actually hear her
Exactly.
later album. So this is kind of a backwards way to do a review, because this is a song this is a 10-year, almost 7 years old record. So, but I just wanted to talk about them because I'd never heard of
Yeah.
them before, and so I guess I've been living under a rock. Let me try to screen share just a few, about 15, 50. Okay, I must
Okay.
have
Because you're
jumped
not
off
on our
there.
screen.
I
Did you
can
know
see
that?
me now, but I switched back and forth so many times. But you can hear me, right? I can clearly see me. I'm recording,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah,
Yes.
sure.
I try to do a couple different things, and so
Okay.
I switched back from different computers at the same time, and I thought I could run two at the same time simultaneously, but when I jumped to the other one, it stopped that one. So it's kind of weird. So I'm experimenting with their podcast. Hope I don't screw it all up. Okay, I'm going to screen share, and I'm going to play. I'm going to go ahead and play a few minutes of not minutes. We'll do about 20 seconds. I think maybe we can get away with that. So hold on. We'll see if anything weird happens. I've never tried this. I've never tried it at all. I'm going to try this. Okay. Oh, yes. Open system settings. Yeah, this is so backwards. Okay, keep talking, guys, because I apparently need to allow. Apple needs to let me allow screen sharing. I don't know.
Yeah, I
Okay.
did. I had that feeling myself. Like you can tell that they're
Mm-hmm.
a little immature,
Now the music.
not in their
Okay, I think
music,
I
but
am
in their
screen
life
sharing now. So here we're gonna
experience.
go. We're gonna
There.
go over here. Let's see if this works. Here we go. Can you hear it on your end? Here we go. Let me see. I'm gonna unmute. Can y'all hear it? I don't know.
No.
No, not yet.
This is the music video, so
Still
it's
nothing.
not live. I think a live version would be kind of cool to see. You can't hear it?
Yeah, we can't hear it. Sorry.
Well,
No.
I can hear it, but
No.
it's coming through my speakers. We'll see.
It must be filtering it out.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Might
drummer is
be.
killing it
Yeah,
right
because it
The
wasn't
here.
very
software
long.
is
Just
really good these days.
and the whole band is. All right, so that was about
Which
15
song are you
seconds of
listening
that.
to?
I think you'll probably be able to hear it in post, but I apologize. You guys didn't get to hear that. Um, but I believe we'll see. We'll find out if I screwed it all up. I'm going to stop screen sharing and get out of here and go back. Yeah, so it was screen sharing, so hopefully that worked. Now we're back. Can you hear me okay? Okay, sorry about that. So it didn't show for you guys,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yep.
this. I'm sorry for you guys as guinea pigs. It said successfully rendered screen recording, so we'll see. Maybe we'll be able to better smoothly do that in the future. I apologize. This is new to me,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
yeah. Okay,
We
well,
still
it
can't
says
see
I'm
you, by the way.
recording, and I see myself and I hear myself, so I think I screwed up because I went between two different devices, but I believe I'm still here. I think
You might want
Yeah.
to
yeah,
check your video
it shows
settings.
me here, so let's just
Yeah.
trust that I'm here. If not, it could just you can hear me. I think it's going to be okay. So, anyways, yeah, they're a
Yeah.
great band. I'm really excited to listen to more of their songs, more of their albums. I guess starting back, these are young girls, young adults now, and we're listening to them then when they're basically kids. So, very talented album. And if I would have heard that and didn't know their ages, I would have had no clue that they were, what 13, 15, and 17 or something like that. And that first,
They're about 12, 14, and Ali is about 2.5 years
yeah,
younger than Powell,
yeah, I would
and
have had
Powell
more
is two
fun.
years younger than Danny. So they're
Yeah, young
24,
band,
22, and
not just
19
a
right
young
now.
band, and they've been playing for almost 10 years
Yeah,
together as a band now. So I mean, a veteran.
yeah. They
That's
actually had a
crazy.
10-year concert.
Yeah, my hat.
I tell you what, when my 2 years
Hmm.
ago, when my daughter was 14, she had a booth at the
Hmm.
Comic Con in Houston, and she was selling her own comic books that she had drawn. She had two different comic books that she had drawn up and printed. Now, I mean, may not be something that's very impressive for anybody to do, but she was 14 when she did that, or she was 13 when she started doing it. She had them all done, and she was, printing or selling this artwork, comic books, doing sketches for people, and that just blew me away, because I just remember when I was 14, you know, I wasn't even driving, I was not doing anything, I was
Yeah,
just a kid. And so kids these days, it seems like they're really like
but
growing
I
up
I
fast. I
think
don't know.
too,
I don't know
like,
if you guys.
and I don't want to. What they have done is amazing. I don't want to lessen anything that they've accomplished. What they have done is amazing, and I don't want to give them any kind of handicap for living in Mexico. But having parents, I think, that direct you in that area of endeavor does help. I wonder how much their parents actually kind of like saw that they had, because her father was a promoter. Their father was a promoter that kind of gave them some guidance to do that. But still, it's amazing. I don't want to discount that in any kind of way. That's not what I'm trying to do. But um,
Right, right. It does help to have parents that are supportive, but in the end, they
right,
still had to hit those
right,
drums and
exactly.
play those
And
guitars
they had to
themselves.
really want it
So
bad enough to do it, because, as you know, nothing is easy doing it. To learning those songs and everything else, nothing like that is just easy. It takes time and dedication.
Well, when you're young and you're, very young, you tend to learn things a
Hmm.
lot quicker and easier, like languages, for example. So I
Yeah,
wonder, being so young like they were, if that, you know, picking up a guitar or something and being exposed to it, when they're, really young. There's some footage out there of Danny playing the guitar when
yeah,
she looks like she's maybe 5 or 6, and she's playing Yellow Submarine. And I'm like, wow. And she was even, back then. So I wonder, maybe the older
yeah. And
you
I
get, the
think
harder it is to
too,
pick
like when
something
they're
up, of
doing all
course.
this stuff
yeah.
as a young person, you feel like you don't know enough to know that you can't do that. You're not going to master drums at 19 or 16 or 17. Maybe they just didn't know that they couldn't do it, so they did it. You know?
And the younger you are, the more magical everything that you experience is, right? When you're that young, if you're like 5 or 6 year old and you realize that you can play a chord on a guitar, that is just
Yeah,
that's just going to blow your mind. That's going to, change your reality. If you're 30 and you pick up a guitar, you're thinking, oh,
yeah. That is a really
I
good
suck.
point. And there's recency bias. There's the fact that they're getting, when you're young and you just did one thing right and you get approval for that, and then you go instead and do another thing. But I think a lot of times, even as adults, we judge ourselves so harshly. But when you're a kid or when you're younger, you're like you have room to fail, so you keep trying until you master something. But like, even like becoming a writer or playing drums, if you don't get a head start on that, a lot of times people will judge themselves too harshly. They don't put in the work. They don't realize how much work it takes to become a master of something. So, well, my hat's off to the.
And,
Mhm.
when we were kids, I don't mean to interrupt, but when we were kids, our parents were not pushing us to be artists or musicians or anything like that. They were saying, "What the hell are
Yes,
you doing with that thing again?" Right?
I think
Stop
my
wasting
parents
your
wanted me to be a
time and go get a
preacher or something.
job,
I don't know.
or do
Yeah.
your homework.
But yeah. But anyways, great band. Thank you so much, Cleve, for sharing this band with me, because I got a whole list of albums to listen to catch up on. And I mean, another thing too, they're very beautiful and they're very talented. It's easy to like this group because they're just looking at them today. I mean, in their 20s, being super talented. I can see them becoming stars, really. And if they already have, they've opened for the Killers, Metallica, festivals, and everything else. That, yep. And
Muse.
I guess
Yeah,
so.
they're
Maybe
they're playing
when are
in
they
big
coming to
stadiums,
Houston?
at
When are you
least
going to get to
opening
go
in
see them?
stadiums.
Well, they've here lately. They've been in Europe a lot, so I've been like leaving messages on like little
Yeah,
YouTube stuff saying, "Okay, you've been in Europe 3 times. Come back to Texas."
yeah, yeah.
They don't see those probably, but anyway, the point is, I've been like, yeah, I'm ready. They're doing a North
Mm-hmm.
American tour and going up into Canada next after they get back from Europe. Right now, they're in Europe somewhere. I think France, maybe some. They're in. They go all around over there. They've been there like 3 times in a
Yeah.
row. So it's like, come back over here. Because my brother and I got my brother stuck on them. My brother is only about 2.5 years younger than I am, and he got stuck on them. And right after we started going down our rabbit hole, they had played in Lubbock, which is pretty close here to where I live, and we missed them.
Mm.
And they haven't been anywhere near since.
Well, if
So
they come to
they're going to be in
Houston,
Oklahoma, huh?
if they do come to Houston, we're
Yeah.
going to give you
You
credit for
made it
that.
happen.
You made it happen.
They're coming to Oklahoma, which to like Rocklahoma, but
Wow.
it's been sold out for
Yeah.
months. So
Well, my hat's
Mm.
off to them. They're very talented, and it's just very unique. They're three sisters from Mexico, and they sound very. They you would never have known. I would never have known they're from Mexico if that wasn't in their bio and their story. So it's pretty awesome. Pretty cool. Definitely
Hmm.
gonna
yeah.
check more of their music out. Any closing thoughts before we go, or
Yeah, thanks for recommending that album. It was good. I enjoyed it. And I guess I'll have to check out their newer stuff because I'm sure that they have developed and matured
yeah, I
over
think
the
they've
Oh
kind
yeah,
of
years.
developed more of a
Yeah.
style
So,
in their last two
yeah,
albums, if
and
I'm not mistaken. Their first album seemed like it was over a lot of different styles, kind of maybe not a lot, but they kind of went more diverse. What do you think, Cleve?
well, the first two albums were independently produced, and then of course the last two, Error and
Mm-hmm.
Keep Me Fed, are both Lava. They're
mm,
record label,
hmm.
but they have in the last two albums they have matured quite a bit. I mean, obviously, but it just blows me away that the first album is so good, even though they kind of have taken. There's some people that are kind of mad about them taking the direction they took in the last album, but I think it's great. I think they're doing great. It's because they put more effects on their voices, and they're using a little bit more backing tracks and stuff, and it's not just them three playing as
And
much.
they do some
They're doing
songs in
back
Spanish now. I thought I saw some
you know
shows with them doing it. Yeah, that's about to be
yeah,
cool.
there's three of them in Spanish.
Those all sound like good developments to me because I definitely would like to hear more on the vocals. I'd like to hear more backing stuff. Filling the background out.
I would
Yeah, I
say
think
this band
that's
is
good.
not really.
And they have
If I were to say like what I would normally listen to, I think I have a weird taste, but they're so good at what they did and what they do that it really caught my attention. So I definitely would listen to it, enjoy it. I have weird taste. I think this is not exactly what I'd be listening to. So I don't know how to say that. I'm not trying to. It's not a dig of any kind. It's just this
But
first
again,
album was really
these are
more teeny
kids,
bopper.
right?
Not
So you just
exactly, but a little bit more teeny bopper than I would listen
mhm.
to. But and their newer stuff is a little more heavier, I think. I don't know. Is it a little more heavier? A little more heavier. And
oh yeah,
I like
it
weird stuff
is.
like the Pixies and I like kind of more I don't know, not folky, but I like some mellower stuff too. So it's kind of weird. I like Kurt Vile and the Violators, the War on Drugs, and I like Lord Huron, some of the stuff that I've been listening to lately, but I still like this band. It was really kind of refreshing to hear something kind of different.
the Pixies. You remember their bass player had an
Yes, their
all-female
original bass
band
player,
too,
the
right?
original bass player.
The Breeders. The original bass player
Mm-hmm.
had a band called the Breeders, and I
Mm-hmm.
believe it was maybe their first album.
Really?
was an
I remember
absolute
one song.
masterpiece.
I'm trying to think of the name of it, but
It
I
was
remember one song.
great.
Yeah, Cannonball. Yeah,
Cannonball,
I just
Cannonball. But that whole album, start to finish, was incredible work of art. I recommend it because this band reminded
yeah
me of them just for the fact
yeah.
that
You
they
don't see
were an
very many
all-female group,
all female
and I
groups.
remembered
Really
how,
don't.
yeah.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, Nate. I, and that okay
No,
that
no, just
Darcy
fine.
is his name Darcy the bass player from the Pixies, I think. And I just remember like
Right.
seeing them play and with like some of the earlier albums from like uh, Doolittle and the live videos of them when they were young, and it was just fun to hear her singing the background parts and stuff over Frank Black's vocals and stuff, and it's just really just some weird shit like that. Sorry, I like weird stuff like that. It's just really cool
Right,
layers.
right.
Another female artist that I really like, that I would like to listen to more. I don't know if she's still around. What's her name? She sings that song. Dang it, my brain just went like skipped a beat. What is her name? Thinking of her right now, and I can't think of the name. It's not one of my usual bands I listen to, but I'm trying to think of her name right now. What is her name? Well, she did a
What's the name of the
duet with
song?
Queens of the Stone Age. I want to make it with you. What is her name? Let me look at that.
That's a good song title. I want to make it
I
with
know. I
you.
know what you're. I know who
Her
you're talking
name
about. I
is.
can't think of her name either.
Let's see. He did one with her, and yeah, her name is PJ Harvey. I really like PJ Harvey's style of like her lead vocals with just real raw guitar, and maybe that first live album or some of the live. Anytime you have a three piece that's just playing drums and bass and guitar, it seems that kind of reminded me of that just real rawness of like when they. I've seen some live performances where she played with just, I think, with a drummer and just guitar, and it was kind of raw. Now, not yeah, like the Black Keys, but it wasn't
Like the Black
quite like
Keys.
that because
Black
they're
Keys,
more
too.
produced. But some of their live stuff kind of reminded me of that a little bit. Earlier stuff, maybe just more raw. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Hmm. You don't get much more raw than the Black Keys now. I really enjoyed the
Yeah,
rawness of them just because they were a two-piece and they were just,
yeah,
you could tell
I
they just
love
didn't
that.
give
And
a
that
crap.
guitar player for the Black Keys is really good. I mean, he does some studio stuff too, and the drummer's awesome too. What can you
Hmm.
say? You can't have a two piece with. No,
Jack White.
that's
Jack
the
White.
you're thinking
Yeah,
White Stripes.
the White
Yeah,
Stripes.
I'm
yeah,
Yeah.
thinking of the White
They're
Stripe. Yeah.
also a two-piece, though. Yeah. But I think they have
Yeah.
other people
and they
play
had
with them on the albums,
yeah,
and maybe they have
and
backing
Jack
tracks or
White's had a
something.
couple different bands too. I think since then, Raconteurs. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The Rick on Tours and
Hmm.
a
Hmm.
couple others. Which band were you talking about, Nate? Were you mentioning?
I
We're
was
talking about the
talking
Black Keys or
about,
something
let's
before that.
see,
Yeah,
The Black
the
Keys.
Black
Okay.
Keys.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
because they're
Yeah.
two
I don't know
pieces.
why I get those mixed up for some reason.
They're two-piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're both two piece. Yeah.
But they're very different
and
as
also
far
I
as
just
their
really
level
that's
of
another reason
Oh
why
yeah.
I
production.
had to hand it off to the Warning. Anytime you can have a lot of sound coming out of three musicians. Now I understand in their newer albums they're doing some backing tracks and things, but you can get a lot of sound. It sounds good and entertaining and full with just three players. I think I got hats off to them. They're just killing it, really.
Well,
Oh
our
yeah.
band is a three-piece too. It's me, Victor, and Chase.
It's
And
it sounds full.
it
I like.
doesn't sound thin to me. I
It
think
sounds full. Yeah.
we complement.
Really,
Yeah.
what I like about a three piece band too is like nobody's slacking off. Everybody's just going full blast, and I like that. Something about it, when you have more pieces,
Hmm.
somebody's
Hmm.
got to sit back and kind of take second share every once in a while, so that they're not just too much noise. But anyway.
True.
Well,
Yeah.
guys, thanks
Yeah.
for coming back on. I don't know if we rambled too much in this last part, but I really appreciate you guys. I tried some technical things. I don't know if it'll work with some screen share, and I don't even know if the audio was playing whenever it was playing through my headphones. So I think it should have been working, but we'll see. But thank you guys for coming on. Great recommendations. So if you haven't seen Apollo 10 and a half, I recommend you watch it. And if you haven't heard of The Warning, I mean, they have, I think, 4 or 5 studio albums and some EPs. So check them out. It was a great
Right.
new pick from Cleve, and I really appreciate him recommending it. So this is the Merick NHL show. My guest panel was fantasy author Cleve Bourbon and drummer Nate Glenn from Loose Helmet. So we'll see you again sometime. Maybe we'll recommend something else. And hopefully we didn't have too many technical difficulties as I switched around on computers. We'll find out later. Anyways, y'all have a great night. We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Merick and Ulrik podcast. Next week, we'll have narrator Ryan Oliver Jones. It's so good. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be a great talk. We'll see you then.